something?
Hello?
Yes.
Am I on?
Woo, woo.
Did my voice just crack? I'm 35 going on 16. It feels great again.
Hi, everybody. Yes. This feels different, doesn't it?
Oh, it feels so different. Oh my God.
Last year when we did this, we were in a basement. It was the 17th take of my coming out story. Bless those boys.
Bless those boys indeed.
Bless those boys.
Are the unicorn queens themselves.
Exactly. So everybody, welcome to Robertson Auditorium. Thank you for joining us for OUTx. This is the culminating event of Coming Out Week, which is a long-standing Ross tradition where we celebrate the experiences and voices of the LGBTQ community here at Ross and the University of Michigan. I'm Krista, and I'm in MBA 2, and I'm one of the co-presidents of Out for Business, along with Eric Zorn, who's sitting right there. My pronouns are she, her, and I will let Thomas introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Thomas Kraus. I'm an MBA 2. My pronouns are he, him, and I serve as the Vice President of Events for Out for Business.
So a little bit about Out for Business. We are Ross's official LGBTQ affinity club. Our mission is threefold. The first is to create a vibrant culture for the LGBTQ community here at Ross. The second is to support our members' professional and personal development. And the last is to, what are we doing here? Truly. We're building compassion for folks of diverse backgrounds across Ross and the University of Michigan. So on that note, I want to thank you all for opening your minds and your hearts tonight and being here to support our amazing 4 speakers. I also want to take a moment to thank our Ross community partners, the Healthcare and Life Sciences Club here at Ross, the Asian American Business Association, as well as the Black Business Association and MBA Council. Thank you so much. DEI is not possible without coalition and collaboration, so we thank them for their support. We also want to take a moment to talk about our community partners who we're fundraising for. So the t-shirts outside, all of those proceeds go towards Ozone House and Plucky Comics. Ozone House is the only organization in Washtenaw County that provides free, confidential support and housing for at-risk youth and LGBTQ homeless folks here in Ann Arbor and Ypsilanti. So they're a wonderful organization and lots of opportunities to collaborate with them, so please show your support. Plucky Comics is a homegrown startup here. It is a tech educational tool that amplifies the stories of Black historical queer figures through the use of comic book art. Plucky is defined as showing bravery in the face of immense difficulty. And I don't think that there are better words to describe co-founders Nathan Alston, Danny Gennaro, and Kachi. So thank you.
So what is Ross Coming Out Week really about? What's its vision? What's its purpose? Our purpose is to engage the broader Ross community in sharing coming out stories and LGBTQ experiences to push us along our diversity, equity, and inclusion agenda. This year's theme is We Find a Way and comes from the Hulu series Little Fires Everywhere, coming from the book of the same name, written by UM alumna Celeste Ng. For context, I'm going to read to you a scene. So Izzy is a high school student who's having trouble revealing her identity and expressing her feelings. She says to Mia, an artist who is renting from her mother, that between her mother, who wishes her to look like a Barbie, and the students who bully her at school, that all she can see is this sky and the horizon, and wonders how much longer is she going to have to swim. In response, unapologetic, authentic Mia tells her that the same day that a famous photo of her was taken was the same day that she realized that the person who loved her back. Izzy asked, who is he? In response, Mia says, she, Pauline. After a period of dumbfounded silence, Mia says, Izzy, we all have parts of us that scare us, parts that we're too afraid to look at, parts that we run from because we're too scared to look at them. But we cannot not look at them, and we cannot not say it. And if we cannot not say it, we're artists. We find another way, and there's always another way. You won't have to swim forever, I promise. So this year's theme of Coming Out Week encourages us to look at the aspects of ourselves that we're too afraid to look at, such as our own biases and prejudices, to move us along our own DE&I journey. And I'll start. I'll be vulnerable. These are the three things that I've been doing to push myself along. One, I've started to question the negative self-talk that I've had in my head from listening to all the messages of intolerance and unacceptance since I was little. Second, I've been trying to learn the history that I wasn't taught in school in the South. While I was driving across the country this summer, I listened to the 1619 podcast by Hannah Nicole Jones. And I've also started to watch documentaries, such as the one called Pride on Hulu, to learn a little bit more about LGBTQ history. And last, to bring it back to Coming Out Week, you know, I came out when I was 16, and some of you heard my coming out story last year. But what you didn't know is that it's not like you come out of the closet and you immediately know how to be friends with other queer people. It's not like, we're both queer. Look, let's hug. Let's be friends. As much as I wish it were that way, it kind of got elevator eyes at the bars when I first came out. And so while at I've had the experience to have difficult conversations with students of different backgrounds, different sexual orientations, and different gender identities. And it's through these conversations that I've had the ability to get to know other people as humans, as people, and listening for the similarities and not the differences. And I think there's a certain power in that. So, as you hear these stories tonight, I want you to ask yourself the three following questions. 1, when have I felt that feeling? 2, what can I do to find common ground with the speaker? And 3, what can I do next to move forward on my DE&I journey? Krista, who do we have up tonight?
Tonight, we have 4 wonderful speakers, 2 MBA 1s, 1 MBA 2, and Pedro, one of our esteemed members of the community.
Amazing. And now we get to know another incredible person. Oops. I want to introduce to you Michael Gorban, Michael O'Gorman, pronouns he, him. Prior to coming to Ross, Michael spent time as an associate senior director at the New York City Department of Education. In this role, he made sure that students had increased access to high-quality seats and partnered with superintendents, principals, and teachers to make sure that it was possible. Prior to that role, he served as a teacher through Teach for America. I give you Michael O'Gorman.
I think I'm good. Can you hear me? I hope so. I think I'm on. I'm good. Thanks, everybody. Yes, TK, what a great introduction. For me, to get started, I want to level set with everybody first in the room. Gay people, queer people, we often talk about the first time we come out. But the truth is that we actually come out again and again for the rest of our lives. We come out every time we go to a new social situation, whether it's a party, a new job, business school. And after that first time, how we come out, if we come out, is largely dependent upon our psychological and physical safety. Sunday morning, June 12th, 2016, I woke up a little bit later than I had planned and did something that many of us do. I reached for my phone. I picked my phone up and I looked to see the notifications from the night before and had quite a few. The typical Facebook, Twitter, Tinder, Grindr, OkCupid. And then there was a flurry of push notifications from NPR, the New York Times, the Washington Post. And the headline said something to the effect of shooting at a bar in Florida. And I remember thinking to myself, oh, God, another shooting. Damn. But I went back to sleep, largely because I was pretty hungover from the night before, but also because I sadly have become pretty resigned to gun violence in America. When I woke back up, I did the same thing and reached for my phone. And this time, in addition to the push notifications, I had a bunch of text messages from my friends. And they said things like, hey, did you see the news? Hey, did you see what happened in Florida? Hey, did you hear about the shooting at the gay bar? And I was like, the gay bar? So I opened up my phone, went to the New York Times to see what I could find out. And yes, there had been a shooting. Yes, there had been a shooting at a gay bar, but not just any shooting. It was a mass casualty event where 49 people were murdered and 53 were injured when a gunman opened fire. All I could do was think to myself, this could have been me. This could have been us. Because at the exact same time that the victims at Pulse in Orlando were experiencing horror and terror, my friends and I were experiencing joy and happiness at a gay bar in Washington, D.C. It knocked the wind out of me. I was gutted. I couldn't shake the feeling no matter how hard I tried all day on Sunday. And I thought, tomorrow's a new day. I'll wake up, it'll be better. Monday morning comes, I'm not better. I haven't shaken the feeling. It's 6:15 in the morning and I'm on the bus on my way to school. I'm a public school teacher, and yes, 6:15 is a normal time to be on the bus. And I'm thinking, what am I going to say? What am I going to do? How am I going to talk to my kids about this? I always talk to them about current events, and sadly we were well versed at talking about gun violence. But this was different. It was so personal, and I couldn't shake the feeling. I didn't have a plan. 7:25, the first students start to trickle into my classroom for breakfast. I have no idea what I'm going to do. I know I have to say something. I know I want to say something. But if I say something, what if it's the wrong thing? If I say something that's too personal, am I going to put myself in a position that's uncomfortable, that's psychologically unsafe? Am I going to confuse kids if I make this too personal and I say too much? I know the risks, it's clear. I'll get phone calls from parents. I'll get called to the principal's office. But I knew I was taught in graduate school in Teach for America that you should be authentic and vulnerable with your kids. It was clear that I had to do this. We should tell our kids about our cats, our dogs, our husbands, our wives, our hopes and our fears, but I knew implicitly and explicitly I couldn't talk about the gay thing, especially with third graders. So I thought about the risks, and I looked across the classroom, and then it became clear to me that there was a reward if I said something. And so I decided in that moment to throw my lessons out for the morning, which I worked at KIPP, and that's not something you're supposed to do. And I called my students to the carpet, which was at the front of our classroom. We did our learning. There was about 35 students, public schools in America. And so I had the kids sit in a circle, and I said, today we're going to have a very serious conversation. Nobody is in trouble. Nobody is hurt in this room, but I want you to know it's serious. And if you're not up for a serious conversation, you're welcome to step up and out, grab an independent reading book, hop on a computer, but I just want you to be ready. And I'm thinking, okay, I gave some kids an out, like someone's going to get up. Nobody gets up. I'm like, are you sure you don't want to go? Like, it's probably not going to be great for us, but okay. I'm like, well, here we are. So we're sitting in a circle, and we have a talking piece that we use, so everyone had an equal chance to speak. And I said, we're going to start with some yes or no questions, just to kind of get us started. And the first question I said was, how many of you have watched the news this weekend, or read the news, or heard the news? The talking piece goes around the circle. Everybody says yes. Comes back to me, and I said, well, good. That was your homework. Then the next question, and I have no idea what I'm going to do. I want to be clear. I'm like hoping for some kind of a Hail Mary, that something comes to me. So the next question that I said to kids was just a yes or no. Have you seen rainbow flags around Washington, D.C. over the past couple of weeks? And D.C., for those of you who know, is pretty small, so people kind of get around to the center of the city easily. And the talking piece goes around, and I get a lot of yeses, a couple no's, a maybe. I was like, a maybe? You saw or you didn't see it, but 8-year-olds, 7-year-olds, they get confused sometimes. So you're like, okay, you probably did see it. And the talking piece comes back to me, and I said, yes, there are rainbow flags that have been around. For those of you who said yes, does anyone know why, like what they mean, why they're here? So the talking piece goes back around again and gets a lot of no's, a couple passes. Someone says yes. I'm like, oh yeah, go ahead. He's like, oh, well, it's about to be summertime. And I was like, not quite. Okay. Goes to the next student, and they kind of like borrowed the same idea. They're like, oh yes, it's because school's going to be over soon. And I was like, well, also no, but okay, close. And talking piece is about to come back to me, and a student says, yeah, it's for gay people. I'm like, the whole class is stunned because someone said the word gay. And so they all look at her, and they look at me, and I look at her, and I'm like, she just said gay. And they're like, she just said gay. I'm like, okay. So the talking piece comes back to me, and I said, yes, the flags that are around Washington, D.C. are actually for gay people. The kids are stunned. They're like, we just said gay more in these 2 minutes than in the entire time I've been in school in my life. And so I'm trying to think through now, like, how do I drive this home? What am I going to do? So I said, the next question, why are there these flags? What do they have to do with gay people? Do your best to give a guess. Most kids, as the talking piece goes around, are saying pass because they don't really have an idea. And it comes back to the same student, and she says, yeah, gay people are celebrating being gay. That's what the flags are about. And once again, the kids are stunned. They're like, she keeps saying gay and no one's getting in trouble. What's happening? Talking piece comes back to me and said, that's exactly right. Gay people are celebrating Pride. It's Pride in Washington, D.C. this weekend. Does anyone know why gay people have something to be proud of? At this point, I'm about to disassociate. I can't believe I'm saying these things. My principal could walk in any minute, and I'm going to lose my job. The talking piece goes back around. Again, lots of passes. It comes back to the same student. And she says to our class, gay people have these flags, and they're out celebrating because they're different. And people who are different like to celebrate that. I was shocked. Right, exactly. I was like, wait, are you 8? Like, what? So the talking piece finally comes back to me, And at this point, the kids, I'm like scanning the room, like who's going to smirk, who's laughing. They're enthralled. They're like, this is the most mind-blowing thing that could happen to them because they never thought we were going to talk about this. The talking piece comes back to me, and I know I have to drive it home. And I said, the next question is just a yes or no. I don't want any details because it's private. Yes or no, do you know someone who is gay? And the talking piece goes around, and it's no, 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 no. Maybe. I was like, no. No, no, no. A yes, a no, and then it comes back to me, and I said, thank you. For those of you who said no, you can actually say yes. You all know a gay person. You know them quite well, and you've known them for a long time. The gay person that you know is me. I'm gay. And the student Destiny, who was sitting next to me, reached for my hand to hold it because she understood the gravity of what had happened. And two other students got up to give me a hug. And to say I felt relief would be a lie because I didn't feel any kind of relief, but I felt peace and I felt safe, which is what I wanted to feel. I had them sit back down. I knew the kids were going to have questions, and I had to try to do some kind of damage control here. So most questions were pretty playful, right? Like, did I have a boyfriend? Did I know any gay teachers? Did I have a boyfriend who was a gay teacher? 8-year-olds, they're quite creative. But some of the questions were actually really serious and genuine. And they said things like, how did you know? When did you know? Does your mom know? Do you go to church? And hearing these kinds of questions, I was like, oh no, you're already internalizing so many of the messages that I internalized too. And so what I said to them is, I knew I was different when I was little. I just didn't know why. It took me a long time to understand how and why I was different. And that might be true for some of you. But one day, when you're older and you understand why you're different, if no one else in your life cares about you or loves you, know that I care about you and that I love you. That was the reward. I got the phone calls from parents, the text messages, the emails. Nobody was fully irate. They had a lot of questions. They weren't really excited about it. I got called to the principal's office, had to talk about it. But it was so worth it. I didn't care about those risks. I came out to my kids because statistically, 3 or 4, maybe even 5 or 6 now, in that moment knew that they were different but did not yet know why. And they wouldn't know why until their head, their heart, and their body align in their teenage years. And I didn't want them to be alone. I chose to come out to my kids because 6 and 10 queer kids are going to try to hurt themselves. Many will be successful, and many will take their lives. I chose to come out to my kids as one small act of courage in a world that defines people who are different with violence and with othering, like in Orlando. And I'm choosing to come out to all of you tonight because even in 2021, in Ann Arbor, Michigan, at the University of Michigan, there are still people, our classmates and peers, who are not yet out. And I'm also coming out to all of you tonight because I want you to dig deep and think about who you didn't have when you were growing up. The way I didn't have a teacher to tell me that I would be loved and cared for when I figured out why I was different. Be the person that you did not have when you were growing up. Thank you. Okay.
Hello, can you hear me? Is this thing on? Okay. I have the distinct pleasure of reading off my notes about our next speaker.
You don't know me?
We're getting to it. We're getting to know each other. Lisa, pronouns she, they, is a second-year MBA from Los Angeles. She attended UCLA for undergrad, where she competed on the ski and snowboard team. That is news to me. And graduated with a degree in biochemistry. The majority of her earlier career was spent pursuing medicine after spending a summer alongside doctors in Tanzania. She then made a hard pivot into real estate development and investing. Since then, she's built up a diverse portfolio and has explored different aspects of entrepreneurship. Lisa is passionate about business innovation and has a strong entrepreneurial spirit. You can say that again. At the University of Michigan, she is involved with the Consortium, Celery Institute, and the Real Estate Club. She's also passionate about the outdoors and can be found on the beach most times. Okay, now let me tell you about Lisa. I don't think that you can find a more genuine and authentic person at Ross than Lisa Hahn. And we are so privileged to be in her presence and to be in classes and to be in section 3 with her. Lisa, as another queer Asian woman, was the first other queer Asian woman that I've been friends with. And I come from New York. And that said, I've never met somebody who has been so personally impactful in my life and liberating as a queer friend. She gives me and a lot of other people permission to be themselves around her and to reflect and to strive for better. Lisa, I want to thank you for being a very important person in my life and for sharing your story with us tonight. Everybody, please welcome my friend, Lisa Hahn.
Thanks. Okay. How amazing would it have been to hear Krista speak in person last year, right? Let's give it up for Krista, because damn. Okay, earlier you heard Michael say that we come out all the time. So coming out, it's an ongoing process. I've come out here to new friends, new jobs. Yeah, I've got a lot of coming out stories. The one I'll be sharing with you today comes from perhaps the lowest point in my life. So I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and think about what you know about the difference between guilt and shame. So the two are used interchangeably, but they're actually experienced very differently. Guilt is a feeling that happens when you do something wrong, and maybe it affects someone else, and you can apologize, do something to fix it, and move on. Shame's much deeper than that. Shame presents itself in your thoughts, like, why am I like this? I wish I weren't like this. There's something wrong with me. Now that's something I can't change. See, that shame, I lived with that my entire life. Let me give you a little bit of context. So my parents, they had a Chinese restaurant, and yeah, they owned it, but owning a business doesn't mean it's lucrative. We were poor. And it was more evident at family get-togethers when my aunts and uncles drove Beamers and Jags, and my family, we pulled up in a Ford Aerostar, if you know that car. Well, let's fast forward. My parents divorced, and my mom told me, don't tell your friends. Don't tell anyone. All right, okay, so a failed marriage meant a failure to society. So my mom's shame became my shame. Soon after, my brother ran into some trouble with the law and he got sent to prison. Guess what my mom told me? Don't tell anyone. Okay, more shame. So as you can see, my family was doing a really good job at doing that one thing. What is it called? Model minority, right? Well, do I have a doozy for you? And that's me. Me, I'm queer. But I had so much experience and familiarity with shame and what it meant to fit in with society that I was convinced this would break my mom's back. And I couldn't do that to her. She had already been through so much. Could I bear to break her heart? So you know what I did? I didn't tell anyone. I hid. And I tried to fit into heteronormative world. I tried to sound sweet and feminine when I talked. I even had boyfriends. Yikes. Oh man, but I idolized DMX, what? And Tupac. I wanted to be a Backstreet Boy, and I loved women. So the sad thing is, though, is that I vowed to be straight for the rest of my life. I made a deal with myself, all right? You're gonna live the rest of your life as a cis, female, straight, Asian woman, at least until your mom died. Which is why I had 2 secret girlfriends. Hold on though, get your head out of the gutter. I see you. They're at different times, okay? But man, no one knew about the beautiful love that we had shared. The secret gayness, I kept it away from my friends and I withdrew from them. So after my second girlfriend and I broke up, this was the first time in my life where I had truly felt heartbreak. But no one knew, and I suffered this alone. This was the first time I felt depressed. This was the first time I wanted to die. I didn't want to be alive, and that was a scary place to be. I couldn't continue with the secret anymore, so I knew I had to come out to my mom. But how? I racked my brain and I thought, all right, Lisa, you know, it's not a big deal. People are gay all the time. Okay, just be cool. Lisa, you're cool. Be cool, all right? So casually, my mom, we saw each other often. And at home, I was like, okay, I'm gonna use this strategy. And some of y'all know this one. It's called the sandwich. So I decided to share my coming out in between other news. Okay, Mom, I'm gonna go to the gym at 1 p.m. And oh, by the way, I was dating Becky, but we broke up, but also I'm gonna go grab some dog food afterwards. Oh my God, my chest was tense, my throat, but hey, I've been hiding for so long that I'm sure I looked cool. Man, My heart was pounding. I could hear it. My hands were clenched, just waiting for some sort of reaction. And I held my breath. My mom, she simply said, "She wasn't the right girl for you anyway." Of course I knew. I'm your mom. But don't worry. You can find a better girl. Oh, what? Are you, what? Oh my God, okay, yes. A sigh of relief washed over me, but what? Outside, of course, kept it cool. Inside, I was going like, wow, what just happened? Was this big moment not a big moment at all? And then I realized it's one of those classic situations in which we make up stories in our heads. Wow. So, I've been trying to hide, but this entire time, she already knew. Sidebar with me for a second. So basically, you're telling me I could have come out earlier? And then that meant I could date girls earlier? Damn! What the? Okay, well, ever since then, I never looked back. And this is why I show up the way that I do. I know I'm not the only one who's carried this shame. And I'm going to be honest with you. I work through this every day. But it gives me the power to express empathy and kindness to others. However, the shame should not be normal. Not only are queer people getting killed because of their orientation, queer people are committing suicide. They're killing themselves. So, I present myself as authentically as I can. You see me. Oh, visibility. Visibility. Visibility is vulnerable and courageous and necessary. I want you to see me. I want you to know I'm gay. I want you to know I'm a lesbian. I want you to know I'm a queer, masked woman. Whatever label you want to put on me, I like women. So I do this to push our humanity forward to a place where these labels don't matter. To a place where we don't have to feel shame for who we are. To a place where we don't have to carry the burden of always coming out to everyone who comes through our paths. I want my lifestyle choice and my wrong sexuality to be right. Now, do you see me?
So, wow. So let me tell you a little bit about the Lisa that I know. Lisa and I were consulting buddies this summer at the same firm. And we got through a lot together and learned a lot from each other. I think that relationship even started to blossom more once we started doing OUTx. Those late night texts to each other when we found out that we had experienced the same things, the same emotions, and somehow that our moms always knew that we were gay. Like, it's just like moms know. It's like a third sense or something. I'm just really honored and humbled to know her and to have the experience of being her friend. Thank you. Now I'm going to introduce to you another person who's become my friend in a very short time period, Pedro. Oops. This is Pedro. Pedro, pronouns he, him, is a project manager in the Office of Patient Experience at Michigan Medicine. In this role, he tries to improve and succeeds in improving the patient experience and family experience through a diversity, equity, and inclusion lens with particular focus on LGBT health. He's also a Master of Social Work student at Wayne State University, focusing on macro social issues such as community development and policy development. He's no stranger to the University of Michigan since his husband, Tyler, completed both his BBA and MBA here at Ross. Pedro, Tyler, and their dog Hudson live in Detroit. And I'll give you Pedro.
Is this on? Can you hear me all right? Yeah. Yes, perfect. I'm like that girl in Mean Girls that's like, she doesn't go to school here. But here I am. I'm back. Thank you for having me. My name's Pedro. My pronouns are he, him. Like Thomas said, I work at the University of Michigan Health in the Office of Patient Experience. So I do focus a lot on LGBTQ health, but I kind of look at the DEI lens for the patient and family experience as a whole, because there's a lot of just elements that we have to think about and talk about and do for our patients and families. So thank you for having me. When Thomas and I were going back and forth a little bit on what I would talk about tonight, he gave me something to think about that was so good that, forgive me for reading it word for word, but I just want to share it with you because it speaks so much to my story and what I'll talk about tonight. So he said, quote, "Sometimes there's no conflict resolution between queer folks and their parents. Sometimes we have to hide aspects of ourselves to remain emotionally healthy and physically safe. This is answered by the question of, quote, how do I resolve the relational conflict between my family's disapproval of my sexual orientation and my desire to live a full life? So that resolution hasn't come for me. Let me tell you why. My family moved to the United States in 1980. My three older brothers, my parents, were all born in Mexico. I was born in the United States in 1983, and I was raised in a pretty conservative Mexican Catholic family. Stereotypically, we kind of think about Mexicans as, you know, the machos, right? I was raised to believe that men aren't maricones, they're not sissies. My Catholic side, I was taught what the Bible says, which is a man lays with a woman, woman lays with a man. I never talked to my family about my sexuality because I knew what the answer was going to be. So I spent my entire life talking to everybody else in the world, high school counselors, friends, but I never talked to my family about it. I was 18, and it was the end of winter break, freshman year of college. High school buddy of mine, we were catching up. We were just kind of talking about how first semester of freshman year was going. And then he asked me, he said, hey, have you come out to your parents yet? I said, no, I've been thinking about it, but I haven't done it yet. Talked a little bit more, and finally he was eventually like, dude, just do it. I'm like, all right, fine, whatever, I'll do it. So instead of going and telling my parents, I sit down at the computer, I write a letter, and he's starting to cop out on this a little bit, right? Print the letter out, put it in an envelope. I said, you know what, I'm just going to sleep on it. If I do it, I'll do it tomorrow morning, maybe before I leave for the day. Wake up the next morning, parents are like, all right, we got to go to the airport. Your flight's going to go. So I was like, great, let's go. Get in the car, and I'm sick to my stomach. I'm like, what am I doing? Why did I write this letter? I'm not going to give it to them. Let's just move on. Check in for the flight. We're at security. And then I just reached for the letter, and I gave it to my parents. I said, here, I wrote this for you. Mom said, what is this? And I said, you know, it's just, we always kind of wrote letters and love notes to each other and missed each other. So I think in their head, they're probably like, yeah, this is just another one of those letters, right? I barely made it through security when the phone rings. Answered nervously, hello? Right? Voice shaking, heart pounding. My mom said, what does this all mean? Well, it's in the letter. I couldn't get myself to say the words, I'm gay. To this day, with my parents, I can't. So, get on the flight, go to college. Mom didn't talk to me for 2 months. Things kind of fell apart from there. My dad kept talking to me. Finally, he said one day, you know what? You should come home for the weekend. Let's just chat in person. I was like, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. Get there. My dad had arranged a conference with my 2 older brothers. Sat down for like an hour and we chatted. Long conversation that didn't go anywhere, but I do remember 2 things. The first thing is my brother saying, hey, you've never been with a girl. How do you know if you're gay? Which in my head, I was like, well, you've never been with a guy, so how do you know? But the second thing he kept saying to me, he was just like, dude, I'll love you whatever choice you make. In my head, I'm like, is this a choice? I don't know. At that point, to this day, he keeps referring to it as a choice. So like, he's my brother, I love him, but we're just, I think, never going to agree with that, right? Got back on a plane, finished first semester, came back for spring break, went home, and my parents had set up an appointment with our family doctor, who was also a Mormon. Took me off to the side, sat me down, and talked. From a medical perspective, homosexuality is not a thing. You're not born gay. So whatever these thoughts that you have, get them out of your head. I had a couple Bible or verse passages that were read. At this point, I'd had enough. I'm like, that's it. I'm done. Not gay. I'm just going to go back in the closet. So for the remaining few years, I just didn't talk about it. I just let it be, and I just kind of kept going with my life, and I did my own thing. Tomorrow's 3 weeks to the day that my dad passed away. Battled cancer for 8 years, on and off a little bit. When my mom and I were standing next to each other, tears rolling down our eyes, she came to me, she hugged me, she said, you know, your dad never told you this, but of the 3 boys, he thought you're the most well-rounded one. So in my head, I was like, did he really think that, knowing who I loved, what my attraction, my sexuality is? I really do not know what I think about the afterlife. My one hope is that it exists for one reason only, so that he can see me, that I love somebody, I'm still his son, and regardless of all that, I'm still who I am, and I hope he still loves me. A week ago, heart still flutters when I see him. That's Tyler. Last week we celebrated 10 years together. We met the old-fashioned way at a gay bar in Atlanta in 2011. We both worked at the same company, completely different experiences. When we first started dating, he put a picture of us at his desk right away. I worked in an department where it's like, don't even tell anybody you're gay. So like kind of status quo for me, I guess, at that point in my life. Kept dating, and finally we got to the point where like, you know what, we want to get married. So at that point, you had to move to a state where marriage was legal. So we decided to pack our bags, move to Chicago. Luckily, right after we moved there, gay marriage became federal. So we decided to elope in Las Vegas, which was a whole different story. Kind of lived our life. And then he was in Chicago. He had this genius idea that he wanted to do his MBA. And I was like, what are you talking about? So we decided we're here to do it. We moved together to Ann Arbor. I stumbled upon my job in Michigan medicine, and kind of the rest is history. But the entire time, I missed the ability to share all these awesome experiences with my family. And I look back on it, and yeah, it makes me sad. Yeah, I've come around to it. Some of my family has met Tyler. They've been embracing him and, kind of making up for some lost time. But my mom still doesn't know. We still don't talk about it, and it's the way it is. I want to pivot for a second and talk a little bit about healthcare, a little bit about my job and why I do what I do. Healthcare is a weird thing. It's a new industry for me. And I think about what we do on a day-to-day basis. There's so many layers to it. First, there's this entire spectrum of emotions, right? From happiness because there's a newborn, to the middle, which is like this gray area. You're like, well, I know I'm sick, but I don't know what's wrong. It's stressful. To the super sad when you lose somebody's life. You add different complexities on there. We all have different identities. So we have different beliefs. We have different spiritualities that people show up with, different genders and sexualities. And we have to provide healthcare in context of all of that. Add to that the fact that we have all these regulations that we have to comply with. And then add to that the fact that we're all humans and we all have emotions. And sometimes we kind of lose our cool. It's a perfect pressure cooker, right? I wish I could tell you that there isn't bias in healthcare. There are some people, unfortunately, that are racist against our providers. And unfortunately, we do have providers that are racist against our patients. And it's not just us, it's kind of rampant across the healthcare industry. How does this play out? Well, sometimes we provide gender-affirming surgeries at Michigan Medicine. We've had instances where somebody comes out of that surgery and they immediately get misgendered by someone. So imagine going through all of that. Getting to the point where you're just like, I've achieved it, I'm there, and then somebody just does the wrong gender. Imagine being a gay couple. You're celebrating the birth of a newborn through a surrogate. You look at the birth certificate worksheet and it says mother, father. What box do you want me to fill out? Because there's two dads. So these are the things that we try to think about, we try to fix. What I think is at the core of this is empathy. Any Brene Brown fans in here? Usually, yeah, all right, good. When I ask that question in the healthcare system, I usually get like blank stares, but I'm like, all right, something's not right here. So Brene has this awesome explanation for empathy. So sympathy is feeling sorry for someone, right? And empathy is feeling with someone. The crucial part to empathy is the ability to take someone else's perspective. So the question I have is, how do you take someone else's perspective if you don't have that shared experience? Sometimes we have the shared experience, right? And we just get tired. We kind of forget it. But a couple thoughts I want you to think about. As you heard these stories tonight, which are all amazing in their right, did you have sympathy for them? Did you have empathy for them? As future allies and as future leaders in organizations, are you going to have empathy to be able to, are you going to be able to lead with empathy? Are you going to be able to take all these different perspectives that you might not have that lived experience and do something with them and become an awesome leader that's inclusive of everybody? That was my little video, sorry. Just one final thought. So you all know more about my coming out story than my mom does now. There's just two things that I think about. I just want my mom to know that I am that same little boy that's in that picture. I just love someone different. I just hope that for once I tell her this before it's too late, and I tell her before I'm at her death, at her side for her death. Regardless of what it is, I'm still her son, and I just live an awesome life. Thank you very much for having me.
So I need you to do me a favor. I need for you to finally take out your phones after you've been putting them away all evening. So dig into those book bags and bring them out. And I need you to aim them at that QR code or join this poll at slido.com, hashtag, well, OUTx. I'm looking around the room. I'm doing some teacher moves that Michael taught me. I see y'all over there. I think that we're almost at 100%. We got 90%. Okay, positive narration and framing. I think we're good. Okay, good. So I think it would just be kind of unfortunate if we came here tonight and heard some incredible stories, but we didn't go forward in our journey. So I offer to you these choices for you to take your next steps. I'm going to give it about 1 more minute for you to make your selection. Oh, wow. Kind of moving a lot there. Oh, okay. Is there any way to see what happens below? These are our top 4. I wonder if, oh, okay. Cool. Cool, okay. All right, I'm just going to read. Getting coffee with classmates, watching LGBTQ series or documentaries such as Love Victor or Pride, introducing myself with pronouns and inviting others to do the same, asking for a more inclusive curriculum with case studies with BIPOC and queer leaders in businesses. Is there anything else? I think I had like 7 or 8. Joining and attending an affinity club's meetings as an ally, and then choosing my own adventure. So, oh, one of my favorites, just to kind of build up the suspense. Joining, okay, well, one of my favorites was signing up for Out for Business's drag show competition and be gay. Pedro and his husband Tyler will be back again because I don't know how to do it. Tyler was the last person who did, so I'm thankful for that. If we could just scroll up to the beginning of the screen to see what our winners are. I think this is great. Getting coffee with a classmate and having those conversations is an amazing place to start. Then asking for a more inclusive curriculum with case studies. Oh, wait. Okay, oh, well, is third. You can talk to Eric about that. He's in charge of an inclusive classroom. And then watching an LGBTQ series or documentaries such as Love Victor or Pride is our second. Thank you very much for coming tonight. We look forward to celebrating with you at our classic, traditional, non-formal Thursday night place. See you there.